If you're watching this, then you might be working hard to get that promotion and to move up the career ladder. But that doesn't mean you should be promoted. Not because you're not capable, but because you might still think like an employee. And the higher you go in leadership, the more dangerous that kind of employee thinking becomes. In speaking with many senior leaders, one thing stands out. Those who progress further in leadership don't simply work harder, they think differently. A lot of people think leadership progression is working longer and harder, being technically competent, dependable, and the smartest person in the room. It's not wrong to say that, but real middle management doesn't work like that. This is the 7th segment of my interview with CEO Wilfrid of Carriage, Southeast Asia. If you want to get some background and context, check out the earlier segments of our interview in my Leading the Middle playlist. In this video, you will actually hear for yourself the difference in how a real middle manager thinks. And more importantly, why a lot of people struggle after getting their promotion. After all, you were probably the best in your technical area, so you got promoted. But after the promotion, work starts getting challenging. You're not only doing less of the doing of work, you now spend more time supervising or managing the work of others than ever before. You're handling expectations, communication, conflict, priorities, difficult conversations, performance, stakeholder alignment, etc. You might start feeling trapped in the middle. Your boss and other senior stakeholders pushing from above. Team members needing support below. You also have your peer leaders and their teams to handle. Everything's urgent and important. This is where leaders become frustrated, because the skills that help them be successful at their previous level are no longer as relevant, and nobody told them about it. Let's hear it from a CEO who lays it all out for you, who you have to be to succeed as you move up the career ladder. So, for all the people out there who will be watching this, so to sum it up, when you are an individual contributor, you can be really good in your job in that particular niche.
Yep.
And eventually, someone's going to tap on your shoulder and say, hey, look, okay, we think you got what it takes to move up. So you move up, but you're still in your niche. And then when you're thinking, all right, so what's the next step? That next step requires you to have an understanding of several niches.
Yes.
And that means that in order to prepare yourself for that move into middle management, you've got to gain skills and experience and knowledge in different areas. And it's that journey of, the journey and the trials and errors in which then you decide, well, do I still want to? Because I think there were a couple of times when you have bosses who just ask you like, so do you still want to go into general management?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, at any one point, people would have gone, you know what, this is just too much. I remember years ago, my bosses used to tell me that I needed to have big picture thinking. I was very puzzled by what that meant. Usually, nobody mentioned to you that a promotion means a mindset shift is needed. The higher you go, the more you're no longer judged only by your own performance, but by the performance of your team, the capabilities that you have built, your ability to communicate, people management, your ability to grow other leaders, etc. Many people aren't prepared for this transition. A team member focuses on execution. A team leader focuses on team output, but a head of department focuses on alignment. How do all the moving parts work together? This is where many leaders struggle, because they still think like high-performing employees. And so to have a sense of doing work, they become operational bottlenecks where everything must go through them. They don't delegate properly, overcheck everything, and are constantly firefighting. Leadership at the higher levels requires systems thinking, not task thinking. And this is why some hardworking employees never progress. Because leadership progression isn't just about capabilities, it's about perspective. The higher you go, the more you have to let go of doing the work and be more of a big picture person. And once you start thinking broader, a new problem appears. Now, you're no longer responsible for just yourself. You're responsible about other people's performance.
Yeah, I would think, at many points of time, people would think, really, do I really want to try this? I don't know anything about it. How do I even begin?
Yes.
Yeah, and so there are many reasons and excuses that people give to themselves, okay? But these are all but illusions. The only reality is progression, learning, and continuous excellence over time.
Yes.
And that you garner by experience, trying, doing every single day. And to be able to manage bigger and bigger leadership roles, right, you have to have a rather nuanced understanding of different niches, like you said earlier, or different silos or different disciplines, whatever word we choose it. The more exposure you get makes for a richer understanding of how a corporation runs. And then later you still got to understand stakeholder management, regional management, in terms of now you're not just managing a department of a few people, you're managing a company, and then now you're managing a public listed company, and now you're managing a region which has 4 public listed companies, and you're sitting on boards. I mean, imagine the scale of learning and understanding you need to accumulate to get there.
And the mindset that needs to shift as you go from, team leader right at the bottom to then, middle management, where you're managing at the very least several team leaders who have their own teams. That mindset shift, that doesn't come, it comes over time as you gain skills, as you experience, as you reflect and ask yourself, why am I on this journey?
Of course. And the mistakes you made are the ones that you learn from the most. Because you try so many new things, you're bound to make mistakes, right?
Okay.
The mistakes help you with a more nuanced understanding of how you should improve yourself.
I once volunteered with a non-profit and was asked to scale up a ground operation with a handful of volunteers. We eventually grew it to the late 40s in total number of volunteers, alongside 5 team leaders over a 16-month period. One lesson I learned very well was that my own personal contribution to the overall operational work was about 2 to 2.5%. If you take 100% divided by roughly 40 plus people. Everyone else carried the day, and my job was to ensure they could do just that. The more people you lead, the less it becomes about your personal achievement, and the more it becomes about the effectiveness of others to achieve. Early in our careers, we build confidence through our personal efforts. That's how people get promoted to lead a team of their own. But in team leadership, your value becomes, what can my team consistently produce? And this is where many struggle internally. Because deep down, they still derive self-worth and validation from being the smartest person in the room, from exercising their personal effort. But as mentioned earlier, if you keep focusing on what you can produce, then you can't scale your leadership to lead more and more people. Because it's always about you and not about others. And this is what Wilfrid means when he mentioned progression, learning, and continuous excellence over time. I've had participants who are new supervisors and they lead one person. The way they communicate, delegate, and lead that one person is very personal. After all, they do 50% of the team's work while their one team member does the other 50%. But if you lead a team of 5, is it simply the same way you lead the one person times 5? It's not. Sometimes you address the entire team, while other times it's personal one-to-one conversations. Some things that you may be addressing with the entire team might be work prioritization, allocation and transparency, coaching, performance conversations, team and management meetings, senior stakeholder alignment, team alignment, etc. That's why when Wilfrid mentions leading teams, departments, regions, companies, and sitting on boards, he's really saying that his job is simplifying complexity. Work can get complex the higher you go and the more people you have to lead. That means you have to get better at leading with clarity in direction, communication, and with what each team or team member should be achieving. Because when you have clarity, people can be set up to achieve success. If you found these insights helpful for your own leadership thinking, do help me like the video It tells YouTube to push this leadership content out to more leaders and heads of departments who may be struggling with the same issues. So, once you become aware that moving up means being responsible for other people's performance, then pressure is something that is also part of the package.
One of the mistakes I learned was also to not to drive performance so quickly, such that it becomes unsustainable.
All right. Is that an example?
Every business can be turned around.
Yes.
But the momentum and the way you turn it around should be when you leave the organization, you leave it in a state where the next person can continue to grow and continue to accelerate. If you milked all that growth in the first few years of your life and the next person comes only to fail and the next person says, let's go back to the basics, then basically you've got it all wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's just look at that what you said, because it's really interesting in that if you have milked as much as possible out of the business situation, it reflects really well on you. Then it sets you up
for that moment in time.
Yes.
But post your moment in that period of time, if the next person comes and it collapses, then it would have shown that every action you've taken has been built on sand rather than strong foundations.
Yes.
So the momentum of how you shift, what levers you pull to be able to manage a result that is sustainable is very important.
Being in middle management is one of the hardest positions in leadership because you're leading in three directions at the same time. Upwards, senior management wants results. You're close enough that you can understand strategy and why certain directions are taken, even if you don't fully agree with them. Downwards, team members want support. Then you translate that strategy and direction into operational rhythm and work with your leaders to drive performance in their teams. Sideways, everything's urgent and important. You can't satisfy everyone. As a middle manager, you end up carrying management expectations, the emotions of your people, operational realities, resource limitations, workplace politics, etc. That's middle management reality, and why I found this part of my conversation with Wilfrid powerful. You can squeeze all the performance juice out of your people, cause high turnovers, and ignore inefficient processes. Then leave so the next person can clean up the mess. You can focus on achieving objectives which you are rightly measured by, at the expense of being a team player with your other department heads. You could look after the welfare of your people, but be seen by senior leaders as someone whom they can't rely on to deliver results. Middle management is tension management involving trade-offs, competing priorities, incomplete information, emotional pressure, and not aiming for perfection but for sustained performance, while at the same time building trust and influence with multiple teams. And this is why emotional maturity becomes more important as leaders rise, not just their technical capability. Because eventually, leadership stops being about solving technical problems and becomes more about handling organizational pressure. And also knowing that the higher one goes, the more expensive their decisions become.
Which means that drawing back to something that you mentioned earlier on, the impact that you have, the ramifications of your leadership, it really, if I'm correct, it really grows exponentially as you move into middle management. So as a team leader, the impact and all that, depending on the industry that you're in, it could be limited to a project, or you could have some like a influence over a particular area, like a city or country like Singapore. But when you're going into middle management and then you're responsible for an entire country or different countries, that means then the impact of your leadership and the legacy
that you leave behind.
Yes, that also has to be part of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. You think about it this way, right? If you're an individual contributor, you want to put that nail in the wall as fast as you can and put in as many nails as you can, right? But when you're managing a bigger organization or group, What you want is that organization or group to be successful, right, for the next 100 years. Not just that moment of putting that nail in the wall. Okay, so for how do you structure success for the next 100 years is to make sure that your team is able to learn, grow, develop, adjust themselves even when you're not there.
Right.
Whereas as an individual contributor, you're there. You're
Yes.
there. Every single day you're there.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're not there, you got to teach the next person how to hammer in the nail into the wall. But how do you get groups of people to continually adjust,
Yes.
think, grow, learn?
Yeah.
That will set you up for success for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
One thing many leaders underestimate is this. The higher you go in leadership, the more costly your decisions become. When you're a team member, your mistakes usually affect your individual work and small tasks with limited outcomes. When leading a team, your mistakes mean low team morale, poor team cohesion, higher turnover, unsustainable performance levels, and difficult performance-related conversations. Leading multiple teams in middle management means your decisions affect entire teams, department morale, resource allocation, employee engagement, strategic alignment, and organizational trust. These three things are operating on very different scales. As you move up, you can't think operationally and in a siloed manner anymore. You must think organizationally, strategically, relationally, and speak the language of business. Often these are qualitative outcomes which can be difficult to measure, whereas operational work tends to be quantitative in nature and easier to measure. And this is why many technically strong people struggle, as they are trained to optimize solutions quickly and tangibly. But leadership sometimes requires slowing down first and thinking through, who will this affect? What are the downstream consequences? How will this impact morale? What signals am I sending, etc. Being in middle management means how can you set things up so your people can learn, grow, develop, adjust themselves without you. Because you're not there doing the operational work, and your personal effort amounts to a tiny percent at best in relation to the overall department's output. You're leading the team leaders who have teams of their own doing the actual operational work. So as a middle manager, how can you empower them through strategic and operational alignment? And this is why hard work alone isn't enough for leadership progression. Because leadership at middle management isn't merely execution, but system thinking and judgment. You're the one who sees the various pieces and aligns them together to all fit in one seamless big picture. The deepest leadership lesson is this. Most think a promotion means more authority, better pay, and bigger responsibilities. But really, leadership progression is about identity change. And this is why many newly promoted leaders, both at team leader and head of department levels, experience the imposter syndrome, exhaustion, self-doubt, and emotional overload. Because they're trying to operate at a higher leadership level using an old leadership identity. And the struggle is within themselves. A high-performing employee thinks, how can I perform well? A team leader thinks, how can I get my team to deliver results? But a head of department thinks, how can I create an environment where others can perform well? Totally different mindsets at each level. And many never fully make the transition from one level to the next. Because the value of a team member comes from execution, technical competence, and personal output. The value of a team leader comes from conflict resolution, performance conversations, team cohesion, and effective delegation. But middle management leadership depends on clarity of vision and direction, alignment between strategy and operations, emotional regulation to perform under stress, relationship and people management of senior and junior stakeholders, and leadership communication to different levels. This is why scaling your leadership as a middle manager requires psychological scaling, because you're upgrading your identity. Middle management is not merely a job transition or a title change. It's an identity shift. And once leaders understand this, their leadership journey starts becoming clearer. So, in this conversation with Wilfrid, there are these 4 very important leadership observations. Observation 1, real leaders think in systems, not tasks. The individual contributor or team member thinks in tasks. The team leader thinks in performance. The middle manager thinks in systems and alignment. Observation 2, leadership becomes less about you. The higher you go, the less your personal effort matters in the actual doing of the work. Observation 3, middle managers live under constant tension. You're dealing with stakeholders all around you and can't satisfy everyone. Observation 4, decision-making changes as your leadership scales. The higher you go, the more impactful your leadership becomes, and the more costly as well. The concepts themselves are understandable, but emotionally executing them consistently is the hard part. Because scaling your leadership requires you to think differently, and nobody clearly explains how leadership changes as you rise. Why you have to communicate, prioritize, and even see yourself differently. Because the higher you go, the less leadership is about control, and the more it becomes about clarity of thinking, communicating, priorities, and identity. That's why I created my first-time leadership program for team leaders and leading the middle program for heads of departments to enable them to scale their leadership. You can learn more about them on my website, simpleleadership.co. Which part of this video resonated most with you? Was it the part on thinking in systems, pressure from all sides, leadership identity, or the cost of your decisions? Share it in the comments below. Because many leaders and managers think they are struggling alone, but actually, many people are facing the same leadership challenges. And if you've made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you very much. Do help me to like and subscribe so YouTube can prioritize future videos for you when they are released. And if you want to guarantee that you'll receive my latest video directly into your inbox, you can also join the mailing list. Link is in the description below. Since we're on the topic of leadership progression, you want to know why some are not yet ready for leadership. What's that?